Dr. Tokunbo Adedeji joins us next to give his perspective on the preparations for the elections. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Are you ready for these elections?
Yes, I am.
What do you think of INEC's readiness?
I believe they've made all the efforts that will give us a day to vote for whoever we're going to vote for. Whether it's going to be perfect or not is another question. But they have made all the efforts, yeah.
That part, whether it's going to be perfect or not, you got concerns?
I really do not have much concerns because we have conducted elections in the past. And who cared at that time whether you had 100% people having the rights to vote at that time? And the results were used and they were authentic results, and so they were.
But times have changed. More people are interested in these elections this time.
The changes that have come in terms of perfecting the process of the election. It's still the same kind of going out there to go and thumbprint, and all that has changed there is to say that you are accredited to vote. That's the essence of the PVC or the TVC. Now, if we are having a process of change that has not been perfected, it does not mean that you're going to throw the child out with the bathwater. Essentially, what I'm saying is that INEC has done its bit. We are where we are. We should go ahead and vote with what they have given us.
Look at those, for instance, who have said, look, I still see some of those tweets coming through now. Look, we've gone more than 4 or 5 times to their polling units, or local government, in whichever case that theirs is, and they've not been able to get their PVCs, though they have the temporary ones. And they think, yes, INEC putting in place that process to ensure that their votes count, but they can't bear, or they don't want to be excluded from this process. They don't have their PVCs.
Something has to give. That's where I have a little difference with the sacrosanct statement made by Jega that you can only vote with your PVC. Something has to give. If you do not want to disenfranchise people, then if you have a way of ensuring that those who are eligible to vote, whether they have the permanent voter's card or not, are given the opportunity to vote, that can be worked out. And I don't think we have too much problems with that. You see, there is already a list of compiled eligible voters. It is that list that they have used to generate the PVCs. So if your name is on that register, it means you have been certified as being eligible to vote. Now, if you have a TVC, it is only an instrument to exchange for the new PVC that has been printed out. So your TVC assures your eligibility to vote, but it does not guarantee your voting because you need to vote with the PVC. So essentially what I'm saying is that something has to give so that you do not disenfranchise anybody.
See what I'm getting there now? You use the word now. Your TVC is the license that gives you your PVC.
That's right.
So there's an exchange.
Yes.
In other words, if we're to go with the point of Mr. Pierce, then it's totally not feasible for anyone to go back and say we want to use our TVC, because before I collected my PVC, I tendered my TVC.
That's right.
So TVC collected. So if you say, let's go back to the old ways, I don't even have the TVC anymore.
No, the fact that you have your PVC means you are eligible to vote. Those who do not have their PVC and have their TVC, something must give so that you don't deny them the right to vote. That's the point I'm making.
Okay.
But from the look of things, do you see that working out? Because INEC will say, well, we're listening, we're doing what we can, we've extended the collection of the PVC for a further time up until the 22nd of March. They could also ask then, and would they be wrong if they say, what else can we do?
Well, for the purpose of dousing any acrimonies that may arise from that, it would be good on the part of INEC to look at the middle of the road approach. where you're going to say, okay, well, we have tried our best, maybe our best is not good enough. But because we do not want to disenfranchise anybody, let us have a room to accommodate those who have their TVC.
Would you not say that INEC has given room, as it should, though? Many people will say that that's its job in terms of concessions, but they also must be careful not to give too many, so that they do not mar the entire process, and at least the will of the majority is finally reflected. I'll give you one example. So INEC was asked, what happens in a case where the card reader reads my card and it verifies that indeed I am the card holder, and I'm asked to authenticate with my thumbprint and then it can't read it? INEC says they've introduced incidence forms, which some people fear could be subject to manipulation. Do you see, how do you see INEC managing this little concessions it seems to be given in such a way that it doesn't ruin the process that it was trying to prevent from happening?
To be honest with you, we cannot have a perfect process. We do not deserve a perfect process.
What we can have is near to as perfect as is humanly possible, can't we?
I'm a realist. I don't pander to emotions about things like this. What is the reality on ground? Are we in a situation to be able to say sacrosanctly this is a perfect process? We're not. So something must give. If you do not want the same hard line to degenerate into some confusion. We have had elections in the past where we were not confined to using just the PVC and PVC alone. Hell didn't break loose. So why are we too hard-lined about that? The people who have the PVC, they have the right to go and vote now.
But at 81% collection, can't we be hardline? I mean, this is with a couple of days left to go for other people to still collect their voter cards.
At 81% collection across board.
Yes.
In certain states, they're still below 50%. So in
one state?
Yeah. Well, I'm saying in such states, will you be fair on those who didn't collect their PVC?
Well, perhaps it's too early to foreclose what is going to happen in that one state, because we still have some days left and their cards are still arriving. Apparently, they have a peculiar problem. But that is one state. We can isolate one state and say, if INEC is not going to be hardline, maybe they will not be hardline in one state. But for the rest of the states, for the rest of the 35 states, can we say that we can close our eyes to the fact that at least 80% have collected their voter cards?
Then INEC has to come out with a statement and clearly state which states must use the PVC and which state they will allow the use of TVC.
You think that's workable?
That is workable.
And practicable?
It is practicable. Essentially, the reason for doing that is to ensure that within limits of the ability that INEC has shown, they are giving room for, that area where they have failed.
Well, INEC chairman made a statement yesterday when he was being asked, when this question was put to him. He said that in some states, in the elections we recently conducted in Osun and Ekiti, he said, we had barely 50% collection.
That's
These
right.
elections went on,
Yeah.
and there was, the results were accepted.
I agree with him.
So why are we making it seem that, INEC still cannot wrap his head around why at 81% a lot of people are still getting agitated?
Believe me, it's all politics. It's been said over and over again. People with certain political interest will want to have reasons to be able to shoot down the process because the process itself may not work in their favor. That is something you can read in between the lines.
And in reading that in between the lines, let's key in what Yinka is saying here. It's a mail he sent in just to remind us of what INEC said, and that they have discovered almost, if not more than 5 million multiple registration. Right. And if we were to go back to the use of TVC, doesn't that negate this effort and discovery of INEC?
Well, like I said, if INEC makes the statement that in certain states where you have over 70% collection of PVC, it is only PVC that will be used in such states. In those states where you have less than 50% of collection of PVCs, then we'll give the opportunity for the registered voters there to use their TVC. That douses all the tensions that we're having.
You think so?
I
And
believe
in
so.
an election where we are trying to fight violence before it even happens, in the sense that the elections must be accepted by all the parties. If one party is suspected to have rigged in any place, it could be cause for violence. You think that if we go back to TVCs and some people imagine that the elections were manipulated, we will be free of that?
You said just one state is involved at this point. So if it is just one state, I don't see how that is going to affect
Even the
results of
elections there,
Yeah.
in that particular...
I don't see how it's
You're
going
looking at, it was saying that you're just looking at the presidential elections.
No.
Let's not forget that that state itself...
all
still
the
has-
elections.
Still,
We have conducted elections in the past, my dear.
well, not with a mix of this kind
There's
of...
no
situation.
yardstick to measure what the percentage of participation was in those elections. There are people who collect these PVCs and will not go out to vote.
Which INEC has said.
Yeah. So what's the big deal about people using the TVC in those places? I don't see any reason why anybody will raise any eyebrow. The names of those who are using TVCs have been captured as eligible voters. You cannot, because they have not been able to collect their PVCs, not a fault of their own, now deny them the right to vote.
But people will say, why don't you apply it across board? If that is the case in one particular state and we say it's peculiar, well, there are still some peculiar instances across the generality of states.
I had said
Yes.
we cannot have a perfect election process. We cannot.
Which is what INEC is saying, that will be one of the imperfections.
So we need to accept whatever we get from INEC for now. Look, it's all about sincerity of purpose. It's about us accepting who we are for what we are. We are not at that stage where we'll be able to say for sure this is foolproof 100%. We're not there yet.
All right, so so the big one now for those who are eligible to vote, who are on that list, who have gone trying to collect their PVCs and have not been able to collect it. Are the people in question now.
That's
What
correct.
happens to those people, even if they're not able to collect before March 22nd?
Now,
So that's a big question.
Now, the question is easy to answer. If INEC comes out with a table that shows the percentage of collection in each of the states of the Federation, and you have a cutoff point, where with 75% collection in this state, you are eligible to go and use your PVC and nothing more.
All right, we'll explore this at a later date. Unfortunately, we're out of time now, but it's an interesting one to look at because nobody wants to be disenfranchised
Exactly.
for these elections. And thank you, by the way, for coming on this morning, Dr. Tokunbo Adedeji. We'll be back in just a moment. Don't go away.